where the blight department issues the ticket for failing to have the home fixed up. Law department goes in and gets the judges of the district court to issue the order to demolish the property because the homeowner won't do it. And then once we get the order, we send it to Mr. Arnold in the blight department. And now today, it's no great number, but we have had 2 homes demolished so far, and we've got orders for 13 more, and we're moving forward on that. So the district court consists of 4 city judges who are elected within the city: Judges Marable, Judge Gwynn, Judge Marsh, and Judge Crawford. It's part of the 67th District Court, which is now run by Genesee County, but by state law, we still get to pick our own judges. So that's going forward well. If you could go to the next slide, I think I have a couple of pictures here, just if you want to see. This home was a home that was ticketed by the blight department. It was a drug house. There were numerous crimes being involved there, but this home was boarded up in December. And it's just one example of what we've been doing.
That was actually around the corner from my house.
Yeah, well, yeah, and there was a search warrant executed there, but after we got the order from, it was Judge Marsh, go ahead and go to the next picture. That was the result, and the home is now vacant, it's boarded up, but it certainly is better than it was before. And certainly the city doesn't have the resources to go in and repair all of these homes, but if we can get them boarded up, we can save the neighborhoods. And I think that's the real goal here, we've had several cases. There was the really bad one on Victoria Street, 1014 Victoria, about 2 years ago, that the neighbors were really desperate for some help because they just had, people who were just vagrants who were just in the homes, living there, and doing whatever they wanted to. So that's an example of really kind of the program we've put together with the blight department and are working on. If you go to the next slide, please. Just some other statistics that I can put together. FileVine, the city over the last fall, we implemented a program, a case tracking management program that's called FileVine. It's run by a company called FileVine. It's assisted us in keeping better track of our cases and performing some of the more mundane functions that we've been able to automate, such as generating subpoenas and sending out crime victims' rights information. But through FileVine, this year alone, we've reviewed 371 requests for warrants. We didn't issue them all, but we reviewed them. We've also, since the FileVine was implemented back in September 1st, or roughly September 1st of last year, we have sent out what are called crime victims' rights packages to 452 crime victims of crimes in cases in the city. And then also, finally, I mentioned it in passing, or I mentioned it earlier, we've been able to obtain 13 demolition orders, 4 homes that we have fire insurance withholding money for. So that's my little part of this. Our Chief Assistant, Joe Cups, has got some more information for you, and thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Tom. So the Administrative Hearings Bureau was established in 2023 with 2 hearing officers. Before it was created, the enforcement and collection of fines that were issued by the city's NSOs didn't meet the needs of the city and its residents. Essentially, the efforts of the NSOs that were employed by the city, that were out there traversing the city, they weren't being fully realized. So the Bureau is one piece of solving the blight puzzle. Tom talked about a couple of those pieces. The Bureau itself is another one of those pieces. One of the law department's attorneys, Attorney Willie Wallace, he's tasked with enforcing and collecting on those tickets that are issued by the NSOs. The implementation of the Bureau and the efforts of the law department, they provide one more mechanism for the cleanup of blight and the collection of those fines that are being issued. So as you'll see on the slide that's up there right now, before implementation of the Bureau, the NSOs issued 803 tickets, but only $8,210 was collected. I think the cleanup of the blight issues themselves also correlates with that fine number. After implementation of the Bureau in the most recent fiscal year, collections increased to almost $48,000, but more importantly than the collection of just the fines, the cleanup of blight increased as well. And you'll see there were 63 blight cleanups and 57 cases were adjudicated by the 2 hearing officers of the Bureau. If you could go to the next slide. So in recent years, not only in the city of Flint, but I think nationwide, we've seen a strong interest in the activities of government and the goings-on behind the scenes. The processing of Freedom of Information Act requests by the Law Department is done pursuant to Michigan statute. That law in the state of Michigan, it dictates how those FOIA requests are received, timelines for processing, reasons for exemption, and lots of other details. The Law Department processes all Freedom of Information Act requests that are received into the city. It's a little different than how some other municipalities do it. In other government entities, they will have a Freedom of Information Act coordinator in the police department, and they'll have another one in the fire department, and they'll have another one for the Department of Public Works. Here in the city of Flint, all of those Freedom of Information Act requests are routed through one place, the FOIA coordinator, who is one of the paralegals in the law department. That does a couple things for the city of Flint. It ensures consistency, it helps to speed things up, and it allows those other personnel in, for example, the police department or the fire department to concentrate on what they do best, policing or the fighting of fires, not processing these Freedom of Information Act requests. The Freedom of Information Act requests that the city receives, they're addressed to a number of entities. They seek information from, again, the police department, the fire department, assessing records, tax records, a variety of areas. And they seek a lot of different types of information from the city. They seek documents. We've had FOIA requests for emails, text messages, videos that are held by the city, and a full range of documents. So as I said, all of the Freedom of Information Act requests that are sent by members of the public to the city, they all flow through the Law Department's FOIA coordinator. In 2024, she processed 2,016 requests, and so far, just in the first 4 months of 2025, she has already received 719. I know that slide says 713, but she already received 6 more just since that number was pulled. So in processing these, Tom talked about the system FileVine that we use for criminal matters. With respect to FOIA requests, we have another cloud-based system that the Law Department utilizes, which is called Next Request. That helps to streamline and speed up the process of sending those out, reviewing them, and returning the results to the requester. That makes it a lot more doable for only one individual to handle all of those FOIA requests, 2,000 approximately per calendar year. Thank you.
So to wrap up, yes, for the Law Department, I do want to just talk a little bit about our experience level. We have a legal fellow who is gaining experience, and the rest of our staff, we have up to 20 years experience working in the law profession. Our support staff is great. They're very timely, they're very responsive, as you all know, because you all tend to have first contact with them, and they pride themselves on making sure that they fulfill the needs of the requesters once they come into the office. The Law Department touches every department in the city, from assessing all the way down to facilities. So it is important that we are fully staffed so that we can ensure that we are providing the type of protection that the Law Department is tasked with doing for each of our departments. And I want to make sure that I also state that we do initiate civil cases. We defend the civil cases that are lodged against the city. So with that, I do want to thank my staff. They have been tremendous as we try to work through being short-staffed and still trying to keep up with the huge workload that we all have. So we welcome any questions. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Mashat. Pardon? You first. I go last.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the presentation. You actually knocked out quite a few questions that I have, so we can kind of streamline this. I have to go back up on my list now. Che, Mr. Moore, shocking to see you here. Kidding. Do we still hold blight court in City Hall?
Yes.
Yes. And about how many cases do we have? Is it like weekly, monthly, or how does that process work?
Attorney Wallace from our office is the primary attorney who handles those, and it's my understanding the cases are heard approximately one time per month.
Oh, one time, okay.
And with that, we do have 2 administrative hearing officers who handle those cases.
How do we prioritize cases for litigation, and like what measures are in place to ensure that settlements are negotiated at a reasonable cost to the city?
So those are 2 different questions.
Okay.
The prioritization really is about the deadlines, meaning that if a case comes in and normally if it's personally served, properly personally served on the individuals who are able to accept service, it will be 21 days. And for those that are sent by certified mail, it would be 28 days. So that's the first order of business, to make sure that we were properly served and to get that case assigned. And then what was your second question, Councilwoman?
The second question to that was, and hold on, let me go back up to
as
it.
far as settlements, each case is different. We try our best to work through the matter. Settlement is not always an option for various reasons, but we look at each case separately, and it's on a case-by-case basis.
And I know we have some openings in our legal department. You talked about that earlier, and so sometimes and so I'm just wondering, how does the department decide when to use in-house legal counsel versus contracting with outside law firms, and what are the cost differences associated with those decisions?
Okay, so our department, the lawyers, because of their experience level, can handle just about any case that comes before us. The issue will be whether we have time based on the current workload that we have. So we will look at the law firms that specialize in certain areas, firms that we work well together with, and we will assign cases based on that. What were your other questions?
Just the cost differences associated with the decision to hire outside counsel.
Again, it depends on certain law firms have an expertise that often will require a higher hourly rate. But currently, most of the law firms at this point they're competitive, I would state.
And can you provide any, because I know legal, you have to tread lightly here, but can you provide any more detail on any major outside counsel expenses from last year, and how we are planning to manage or reduce the costs for 2026?
Well, I can get you the number because I did request that report. I just don't have it with me because we are constantly looking at it to see where we are as far as expenses are concerned. That's one of my goals, is to try to reduce the amount of outside counsel that we use. However, at this juncture, they are providing excellent service. They are assisting us because we don't have full staff. And so as we get more staff, we will be able to reduce the usage of outside counsel, but in some cases, they have an expertise beyond what we need or what we have in our department and that we need.
And so I know, and it happens, right? It's not unique to Flint, but sometimes municipalities lose attorneys to the county or the state or things like that. Are we competitive in our salaries when we're hiring attorneys? Is there any reason you can pinpoint if there would be a challenge in getting those vacancies filled, or why we may be losing attorneys at the rate we lose them?
Well, I mean, over the years, the law profession has had its ups and downs. Here at the city, it seems as though during COVID, of course, we were down attorneys. A few years following the beginning of COVID, I think at one point we actually got close to being fully staffed, not fully staffed.
What's I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what do we consider fully staffed in our law department?
Well, our budget allows for us to have 12 staff members. That would include 8 attorneys, 2 paralegals, and 2 paid interns. And of those attorneys, 1 would be a legal fellow. So I've included them in that total. So depending on the experience level of those attorneys who come in, they could be at the beginning of their career. Working in the law department offers an attorney a wide variety of experience. You will get every kind of case possible, and that's a good thing. For others, it may not be something that they can keep up with. So being able to find attorneys that like the variety and can keep up with it can be a challenge. We are looking at different areas, different publications, different organizations that we can submit our job description to, with the hopes that we can get, attorneys who fit the bill to be able to work here.
Okay, and what challenges does the department face in pursuing legal action for blight elimination? And are there any barriers or changes needed in the law or policy to make the efforts more effective?
Changes in it's a matter of resources. To file it, oh, sure, yeah. For the kind of smaller stuff, for like a home, the things we have now, I think the process we have right now works well, where building and safety goes out, issues a ticket, and then in the district court, we're able to obtain a motion. I think we have the judges on board. That, I think, is working well. When you get issues like, and for instance, this issue just came up. There's a store in the city which has people are loitering outside of it. It's late at night, and there's been a whole bunch of crime. There's no good mechanism right now to address that whatsoever, short of filing a large lawsuit and a very time-consuming lawsuit in the circuit court, trying to get a judge to agree that this is a nuisance under Michigan common law nuisance. Were the state legislature or even the city to take a stab at passing ordinances, defining nuisances, and allowing us to do it in circuit court, in district court, that might be one way to go at it. In other words, a nuisance statute. Any store that allows, X number of people to hang out after a certain hour, it becomes a magnet for crime. If council were to pass something like that, or to take a look at something like that, I think that would be extremely helpful. There would be a lot of challenges to it, because there'd be First Amendment challenges. I have a right to stand on the street corner and watch the girls go by. But that might be an idea.
Are there other cities that already have those in place?
You know, I don't know, I haven't looked, but I could look, if you'd like me to, yeah.
I'm just gonna request it anyway, so.
I knew that was another assignment coming from you, yes.
Yeah. I sent you one today, so, and this is kind of in line with the next question, and it might be weird, so just go along with it. Are there any new partnerships or initiatives planned to improve the speed and efficiency of nuisance property resolutions?
One more time.
I said, are there any new partnerships or initiatives planned to improve the speed and efficiency of nuisance property resolution? I can answer that for you, yes.
If there are, none that I'm aware of right now, but maybe you guys know something I don't, so.
Okay. Oh, sorry, how much time do I have? Okay. I mean, so many people have to ask questions, I don't know. Okay. Some of these, and excuse me as I skim, because some of them you answered in the presentation. Really good presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so how does the legal department track and ensure compliance with both state and federal regulations, particularly in areas like labor laws, environmental standards, and civil rights protections?
Well, right now, we are updating our Title VI provisions on the city's website. So we may either receive a notice from the federal government, one of the agencies saying that we're not in compliance, and then, we react to that. Something that the law department is doing currently is when we are approving contracts involving grants, for example, we are making sure that we have certain documents before we can approve. So, for example, we want to make sure that the vendor is approved through Michigan's licensing and regulatory agency known as LARA. We want to make sure that they have current insurance. And then we also make sure that they're in compliance with not owing the city any money, either for blight or water or taxes, things of that nature. So we're trying to get everybody else up to speed, but that's an area that we are working to increase compliance throughout the city.
Okay, so are there any emerging regulatory issues that the department anticipates needing additional legal resources for? And if so, how is this particular budget being adjusted to prepare for that? Because I know we have a lot that's happening rapidly, federally, which would affect statewide. And so we see a lot of changes in regulatory things. So are there any emerging issues that we anticipate needing additional counsel for? And if so, or legal resources, period. And then if so, how is I don't have the budget in front of me, but how is this budget being adjusted to prepare for those?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of changes happening on the federal level, and Tom checks the executive orders that are being issued by the federal government so that we can stay abreast of those things. Often, we will receive notice from the federal government, for example, that one of the grants is being rescinded. And so at that point, we are in a reactionary mode because there's no way that we would have known that a grant that was awarded last year or by a previous administration would be rescinded. So in those instances, we are only able to react. I did look at, what would it take for us to challenge the rescinding of such an award. That becomes very costly unless you have a multitude of municipalities who are also in the same boat, and you band your resources together. But those are very, very costly, and I didn't realize that, but I certainly wanted to inquire because certain grants we had already awarded to various organizations, and now we have to send out termination notices saying we don't have the money, and so we cannot award what has been rescinded.
Kind of going into the next questions. What specific risk management strategies are being implemented by the legal department to mitigate potential financial risks, particularly related to lawsuits and liabilities?
Well, you know, in the past, the city of Flint had a risk management department. It does not have that.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's us. And so, you know, we're trying to balance it because, you know, there are a lot of things and practices that have been in place for some time with the city, and just trying to educate the various departments about what compliance is. And we're not trying to be hard-nosed about it, but we have to ensure that the proper policies are followed and that we are in compliance with state and federal law and the city ordinances. So we are the risk department. We are, you know, working through that. It'd be nice if we did have a separate department, but in the meantime, we are filling that void.
Okay. So I'll just flow into this next question then, because you kind of already answered the last question about, well, my next question would have been, what involvement does the department have in shaping policy recommendations? No, I'm sorry. I skipped a question. Hold on.
Well, that's not a stupid question.
No, I said I skipped a question.
Oh, okay.
Because the next question was going to be, does the department anticipate any changes to the city's risk? But you talked about with federal things being clawed back and haven't explained that to people. That's possible exposure. So then the next one is, how does the legal department contribute to the development of new city policies, particularly with regard to development, zoning changes, and regulatory enforcement? You kind of answered that a little bit, so we can go to that one. What involvement does the department have in shaping policy recommendations that are brought before the city council, especially regarding legal compliance and risk assessment?
Right, so because we touch every department, each of the attorneys have client departments that they are responsible for and that they provide additional services to. So, for example, one attorney is assigned to the police department, another one to the fire department, another one to planning and development, and then we also assist the boards and commissions. So we have an attorney assigned to the Planning Commission, the Historic District Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so as questions come up, we make recommendations. As they ask questions, we also make recommendations. So that's how it flows through the law department. And yeah.
I feel like somebody slipped you my questions, because I promise you, my next question is, how are personnel resources within the legal department allocated across different functions?
Okay.
So you already answered it.
Well, that was the goal, to make sure we answered all questions before they came up. So
It's a little suspicious now.
Who's got the joy of city council?
Right. Okay, so are there any planned investments in technology or infrastructure for the legal department that are reflected in this budget? And how will these investments improve the department's efficiency or service delivery?
So, you know, we all know about AI. And so it has its good points and its bad points. We have been exploring and having internal conversations about the use of AI potentially for our department. From what I have been able to gather, I am a supporter to an extent, and it would help with the drafting of certain mundane legal documents, but that is not without oversight and the analysis of the staff attorneys. So no one in the department believes that it is a substitution for the legal analysis and human touch that is required in the legal profession. So if we are able to employ AI, and in certain departments it would probably be good for the use of it as well. That would mean that the law department would meet with administration, human resources to talk about enacting a policy so that it's pervasive, but there are rules and regulations that would limit its use, because we do want to make sure that we're being efficient, but we're not letting quality suffer. So AI for the law department, like I stated, would assist with certain mundane tasks, but it would not be unleashed on its own. Trust but verify. Yeah, absolutely. And then we always are looking for case management software that will help us with our caseload.
Okay. And then, Judy, I just got a couple more, and then I'm done. What resources are allocated in the budget for handling employee grievances, disciplines, and investigations?
Well, when I think about that, as far as investigations, that's a budgetary item, and that would come from the various departments. As far as the law department conducting investigations, if it has to do with one of the cases that we have, that would most likely be encapsulated in the legal invoice that we receive from the outside legal counsel, or if one of the attorneys needed additional investigational resources, then it would come out of our budget. But I don't think that there's a specific area in the department that's itemized for investigations.
And I know that you said that, everybody's kind of spread out to help with different departments and everything. I know that sometimes, because there are so many ordinances on the books, right? So many different laws, so many things that people may not be aware that it's even supposed to be enforced. So do you offer or do any training or anything with any of the departments to kind of keep them abreast of certain laws that might affect them or they might be responsible for enforcing? Does the legal department offer that sort of thing for other departments?
I'm going to let Tom speak to that because he has a lot of contact with planning and development, more so BS&I, which is under that department. But what we're looking at is doing some training because we find that certain ordinances are coming up. We want to make sure that when it is an issue, that the department understands the full scope of what it's required and what they should be doing. But I'll have Tom, defer to Tom as how it deals specifically with BS&I because they work very well together.
Well, it's the issue. It comes up really in the course of business, and kind of possibly a better example is with the police department. I work closely with the police department a lot, and there's a lot of back and forth, and this is good, this is bad, this is a bad practice you guys need to stop doing. And I'll direct that to the supervisors, especially in the traffic department, regarding tickets, regarding traffic enforcement, regarding nuisance forfeitures. We've tried recently, and so it's not training per se. We're not conducting training sessions. But certainly there's a good exchange of information going on between the police supervisors and myself in the police department and in planning and development with Max. I've worked with Max. We just, here's a good example, just if it'll help. Their variance requests. I'm on the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they have forms that to help people file variance requests. Well, one of the forms just wasn't right. It wasn't following Michigan law at all. And so I worked with him, and we changed the wording of it. It still complies with the city's ordinance, but the form makes much more sense now, and I think it assists people who are trying to get variances. And so from my experience, that's how it's working. It's on-the-job training with the various departments.
Two other things, though, that I did fail to mention is that we also handle the Michigan tribunal cases, bankruptcy cases. So, yeah, the law department does a lot.
Yep.
So you said no, you said 12 would be what is considered fully staffed. How much are we budgeted for in 2026? How much staff? I would imagine it's not all 12, right?
Yes. If we could go back to the first slide. So for fiscal year 25, the figure there includes the 12, and so does 26. You're welcome.
Okay. So I want this, in regards to the personnel, I'm very concerned that we're unable to keep city attorneys. And I know that several years ago, we did the wage study and we did the exempt wages. How much do you feel that the wage that we're offering is affecting the ability of the city to hire attorneys?
Well, since the new wage study figures were enacted, I'm not sure yet. Flint is unique because we don't have a law school nearby, right? And so we are pulling attorneys from East Lansing or Detroit. And so, you know, Detroit is the place to be right now. So I guess if we offered, we do have a nice salary range, though. I will say that. And that's important. We think we're competitive. I think that might require a little bit more research on our end, but the wage study figures really increased, and so that helped us a lot. We're still struggling to get attorneys, but we will look at other places to have our advertisement go out to see if that maybe there's a void someplace else that we need to have our advertising go out to.
I assume people from California would love to come to Flint since it's so much cheaper to live.
Yes.
Also, in regards to that, with our interns and our legal fellow, we're having difficulty with those positions as well?
It does not appear we are. So, for example, I have spoken with 2 potential legal fellows. We do have 1 intern lined up for the summer. So in that area, I think that we're okay, but it will be nice when we have a signed contract. Because with the legal fellow, you know, the requirement is that you've graduated from law school, but during this time of the year, those attorneys are preparing for the July bar. So they're not most likely going to be looking to go into the position at that point, because they're going to spend the summer studying for the bar. So the earliest that they would be available would probably be sometime in August or September.
How soon do you get notification of passing the bar or not?
Well, this is a universal bar, so I'm not sure how long it would take prior to that. If you took the July bar, most likely you would find out around Halloween.
Okay.
When you take the February bar, usually it had been around Memorial Day.
Okay, so that's on par with what the CPA exam is. It takes, that's about the same amount of time.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and of course, having taken that time to study for the CPA exam, I totally understand that. Because I'm wondering if, since we have vacancies and the money is there in your, because you haven't spent all your budget, you're not going to spend all of your budgeted line items for attorney. If, and I'm going to bring this to Mr. Moore as well as an idea, is while you're waiting to fill that city attorney, that we could get another fellow position filled. Chances are they're not going to stay.
Well, they may stay, but again, we wouldn't have them most likely available to us until probably the fall.
Right.
If they have just graduated.
Right.
Yes.
But that's an idea that I'm thinking that might work for you. Because I want to make sure, I know The council hasn't made it easy on you guys at all. Joe's trying not to grin. And I want to send as little legal work out as possible because it does cost us more money. All right, so that was the one thing about the wages.
May I interject there for just
Absolutely.
1 second? To be fair, a legal fellow would not be able to handle generally the types of cases that are coming through right now. So we would still have to rely on outside counsel.
But they could do some research
They
for
could
you.
do that. That is correct.
And that would help,
Yes.
even though the attorney would have to supervise it. And also I think maybe for a draw, it's because they get some of their student loans forgiven. Just saying. That's a
Well,
big draw.
I don't know if that's still the case presently. That
under
used to
the-
be a nice draw, but, you know, with things changing so much now on the federal
knows?
level, we'd have to look into that to make
Okay.
sure that that program is still in place.
Okay, I want to go to blight court type situation. Do we pay the administrative hearing officers?
Yes.
Okay. And we only have one day of blight court a month, basically?
That's my understanding.
Okay, that doesn't seems like we should have more. Do we know, is it because there's a hang-up in, down in the blight office for getting those cases, or does anybody know?
I don't think that there's a hang-up in the blight course department. I think that it depends on how many tickets have been written, trying to make sure we're efficient and having blight court on particular days for the two blight hearing officers. So, and sometimes it could be more than once a month, depending on how many tickets they have.
Okay,
So it fluctuates.
because I will say that for 3514 Pitkin, I called on that, and I said, why hasn't this gone to court? I know there's been several tickets on it, and that's when, oh yeah, we need to send it. So I just want to bring that up, that I'm the one who followed up on that to make sure that that got processed, and I've got a couple of other houses that I have the same issues.
So just on that note, it would not be efficient for the hearing officers to have like one or two cases.
Oh, no, absolutely
So,
not,
yeah.
absolutely not. That's what I'm
Yes.
just following up, because I can see that now in the last year, we don't have a lot of blight tickets issued, but we were down NSOs. So I can see where the cases would be lower this year. Now, I want to know, and I think this goes to you, Ms. Sparrow, is the houses we have houses that are condemned, but people are still living in them due to lack of water and lack of heat. Would those cases be going through you?
Absolutely, yeah.
And do you get many of those? Because, I mean, any other city would not tolerate people living in homes without heat and water.
It's a function of the number of people we have in our office, and
Okay.
we just don't have enough to do the amount of work that needs to be done, nor does blight have enough people to do the amount of work that needs to be done.
Absolutely.
There are probably hundreds of homes in this city that really shouldn't have anybody in them. I think BSI has enough guys to write the tickets. In fact, just last week, I sent an email out to Mike. I said, you gotta slow down, because you're gonna swamp us and overwhelm us, because we just don't have the numbers to write the motions that need to be written.
Okay.
And then even if we can get the orders, then it falls on the blight department to get it cleaned up, and I don't know, I can't speak for Mr. Arnold,
He's got a
Mr.
lot.
Brown, but I don't think they have the resources to take care of all the homes that need to be taken care of. So there needs to be it's a money issue, and it's a manpower issue.
Yep, the reason why I mention that is because I think most of my complaints are people living in condemned homes.
Yep, nope, there-
And it's important that, it's part of making this city, this place, a better place to live. So it's all about money. Of course. What about the Suits and Settlements Fund? Do we transfer that money into that every year? A portion of the general fund into that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
And how much, do we know what the fund balance is in that right now?
I can get that for you. I don't have it off the top of my head, but we have a sizable fund balance for settlements.
How much do we transfer into it every year?
That's a complicated question.
Okay.
But I can get you, yeah, I'll have to get that to you because that's a pretty complicated question.
Okay, I get it. Those are my questions, those are questions that I had. So we've got it's 5:54. I don't have any other questions. Do you have any follow-ups? No, because. You answered. I know, and you had, some of the questions I had, she asked. That's why I let her go first. And then as I'm thinking of other ones that, you know, I've got them in my writing. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time.
Well, I do want to say thank you also, and again, I do want to thank my staff. They are awesome, and you know, working in the city attorney's office, it is a thankless job. But they work so hard to get through the cases, to work with your client departments, and so I think they're doing a phenomenal job, and we certainly need more staff. But with the level of experience and their hard work, we're doing over and above, I think, what the city requires of us.
I don't want to lose anybody, so, and I like everyone I know. So thank you very much. Time is 5:55, and this hearing is now over.
Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen. I know.
I'll take a shot at it, because I know what you need.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Did we do okay, Ariel? Okay. All right. We did all right. Okay. Okay.
you? How are you?
Can't get them all. A lot of people here. Oh, that's been my whole life. So that's not a big deal. She's got great stories. She probably thinks it's funny at this point. She probably loves this. She's so lost. Yeah, she's one of those. I've been here like 7 or 8 or almost 8 years. Oh, it just turned 6 o'clock, so we're not stressing. Good, how are you? I like your shoes.
Good, how are you?
I'm coming right now. I wanted to talk to Benny, but he's busy. Oh, it's just Zane. She's not with anybody. She's not with anybody.
Will you stop filibustering around?
Shush.
Oh my God. She's talking back.
Shush.
Say it again.
All right. I was trying to get information about my issue.
That's your business.
The time is now 6:02, and I hereby call this public budget hearing to order for the Ombudsman. For the record, present is Candace Machette and Judy Priestley, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
I just went to the
For the flow chart, thank you.
and then if you want me to put to these numbers, I will.
Okay. So, first of all, good evening, everyone. How are you all doing?
Good evening.
Yes.
How's Pastor Harris today? Is it pastor or reverend? Which do you prefer?
I'm pastoring, so we can do Pastor Harris, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a long day, but I'm good. I'm doing good. So I'm here as the newly elected chairman of the Ethics and Accountability Board for the Office of the Ombudsperson. And if you take a look at the slide chart, as you can see, in regards to our office, the Ombudsman basically handles all of the affairs for that particular office and running it. Under them falls an analyst, investigator, and then also an administrative assistant. So for the time being, the office is normally ran with, I would say, a minimum of staff of 3, but could always, depending on who the ombudsperson is, they may want to ask for increase and things of that nature. And what's not in this flow chart is then the ombudsman, as you know, responds directly to the board and things of that nature. So we have a working relationship, not just with the ombudsperson, but also with the office as well. So, you know, we make ourselves amenable to the staff and things of that nature. So, you know, that's just basically the symbiotic relationship that we have in our office. Next slide with the numbers. So, for the ombudsperson, it is important for us to have increased community knowledge, because the ombudsperson has to know what's going on in the community all times. Not only is the ombudsman responsible for handling issues within the city, but they're also somebody that you can go to, talk to with any issues and things of that nature to try to, you know, get guidance on how to handle things. And so usually that's why when we're, an ombudsman would be usually particularly good in the legal manner in knowing how to steer people and know how to go. If they need to make contacts, they can contact them. But then also if serious issues come abroad, they know what the community is facing, the temperature of the community. So all of those things are extremely important in having an ombudsman. Also, as you know, the support staff is critical for an ombudsman. The ombudsman can't do his or her job without the support staff. Yes, they can run an office, but they would be there to answer the phone calls, to do what needs to be done. And so, you know, the staff is critical. And then also, the one thing that we're also trying to implement in this policy is providing excellent ombud services. So whether there's a complaint, whether there is issues and things of that nature, the ombudsman would make sure that proper protocol, proper procedure is being adhered to, and then also following up and making sure to see if anything, you know, legally has been done or hasn't been done, if any laws haven't been broken. And then I think when I was here for the legal portion, and so it's true, the ombudsman person and then also legal, they do work together in a capacity as well. So, and if we look at the numbers from 2024, with personnel, it was 127,423, and we're currently asking at 315,730, just for the simple fact that we only had in 2024, there was only one individual in the office. And then in 2025, we had a second individual that was working, but the individual resigned. And then also you can see the escalation because the city clerk and the ombudsman make the same amount of money. So as the city clerk goes up in pay, the ombudsperson goes up in pay as well. So that's where you see that increase. And so for 2026, we were asking for the increase just for the simple fact so that we can be competitive. We know the city clerk got a pay raise, and so that would be equal to what the ombudsman would make. But also we want to make sure that we can bring in the best quality of people for an analyst, and then also an analyst investigator, and then also for an administrative assistant, which we already currently have. So the administrative assistant role is already filled. We just don't have an analyst, and we don't have an analyst investigator to do what needs to be done.
You have one employee right now.
Yes, we currently have one employee right now, and that is Mrs. Shasta Little. And so operating staff, what we're asking for is not as much as it was in 2024. And also that number was kind of high because of also legal services and things of that nature, which we needed to deal with. And so at 467,549, I think is pretty reasonable for the office at this time. And then once we get an ombudsperson in, we'll be able to massage the budget or do whatever we need to do to see fit as the department needs to be ran. At this time, I'll take any questions.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you
doing?
for joining us. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good.
Good, good, good. So there's a mandatory minimum of $250,000 in the charter for this office.
Correct.
How's that spread across personnel?
That is right there. That would be eaten up by the majority of salary. Just the $250,000. If we put that in there now and leave it at where it is, between I think the ombudsperson is. Take a look. Okay, so the current ombudsperson would make 93,000. And then with the different analysts at 41,000,
You said how much for the ombuds position?
93,000, $371.20. Yeah, that's before fringes and benefits. Thank you. And then the two analyst positions are at 41,000. And those are both full-time, and then also with the administrative assistant at 35,256. So if you add all of those numbers together, basically, all of that eats up the $250,000 as far as needing operational costs, as far as maintaining the office, because we're no longer here at City Hall. We're at the Oak Business Center, and we have to pay rent there.
I didn't know that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
That was
remember
because of
they?
the conditions.
Yeah, and they made a big deal about that last year.
I guess I didn't remember.
Yes, ma'am. And so with that case, the $250,000 just would not be enough for the operation of the office.
Okay, so I see one of your bullet points here is increase community knowledge. Fun questions coming. Does the ombudsperson's budget include sufficient resources for outreach efforts to engage residents and raise awareness about how to file complaints and access services?
So, let's see. So for professional services, we're requesting for the $20,000. And yeah, for postage and publishing, we're looking at right at 12,000. And then with supplies and different things, so $4,500. And so I honestly believe that that would be adequate enough for us to be able to get out the kinds of communication, flyers, things of that nature, letting people know about the ombudsperson's office, and then letting them know how to submit a complaint online. They can do a complaint online or written. We don't take verbal complaints, just for the simple fact we know you need a paper trail when you're following a complaint. And so even though you can do one verbally, it's better practice that you put that in writing or to file it online.
I'm sorry, I was just doing the math on some of these numbers.
No, that's fine.
So we're still within that 250. Okay. Are there any? Has the office conducted an evaluation of its community engagement efforts?
No, it has not, just for the simple fact that we do not have an ombudsman in place. So technically, the board would be able to handle that. However, when it comes down to those kinds of things,
Okay.
yeah, the board
So that
hasn't
brings
been
me
active in that.
to the fun questions. There has not been an ombudsperson in place for quite some time now,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And I know last year we were told that 31 complaints were addressed or lodged or something like that. I know the number was extremely low.
Correct.
For the year. So how many residential complaints have been received since last year, so this year?
So as of this year, Madam Councilwoman, I don't have those numbers in front of me as of right now, but I definitely can get them to you. However, I can say this, the board hasn't been able to address any of the complaints due to,
You said you have not.
we haven't been able to
That
address
answers my
any
next
complaints.
question.
Very.
And so that answers my question after that as well.
That answers part of my question, too.
Okay. So then I guess that goes back to the outreach and community engagement. Is there a plan, since there is no ombudsperson and that community engagement still has to happen, that office is still open and it is still being funded, and you still have 2 analysts and an assistant, correct?
Correct.
So then, are there going to be any efforts by the analyst and the assistant? So, okay, what is the analyst's job duty?
So the analyst's job would basically be, so if a complaint comes in, they help, and they analyze the data, they compartmentalize it, make sure that it's in proper order, everything has been submitted, and everything is ready to be filed in order to take the case to the ombudsman for the ombudsman to research it.
So then, because we have 2 analysts, we can still receive complaints.
We don't have any, we don't, the only.
Oh, that's what I said. I thought, I'm sorry, maybe my question wasn't clear. Okay.
Forgive me, the only person that we have operating in the office is an administrative assistant.
So we have an administrative assistant to an ombudsperson and analysts that do not exist, and we're not taking any complaints. We've investigated nothing and we resolved nothing, but we're still paying that person $35,000?
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Help me understand.
Well, the reason one is because complaints still have to be filed, and Mrs. Little makes sure that even if there are phone calls coming in, she directs them and lets them know you can still submit a complaint online, or you can come into the office.
Okay, so
and things of that
then
nature.
we're still receiving complaints.
We're still
and we're
consi-
still filing complaints.
Correct. We just can't.
And we don't have a number of how many we received and filed. I would imagine that since we were only at 31 this time last year, we probably have less than that, because there's no community engagement for them to know that the office is operational.
Correct.
So help me justify why we have an assistant to positions that don't exist, that are not necessarily collecting or receiving complaints anyway.
Well, the reason why is because we want to have those positions in place, because once we get an ombudsman in, then the ombudsman would be able to open up and ask for, open it up for them to begin hiring for the analyst and for the analyst investigative position. That's one of the reasons why, that's why we put it at the budget at 41.
So do we currently have the position posted for the ombudsperson and the analyst?
So the ombudsman position was closed on December 31st of 2024. And so we're currently in the process of trying to get an ombudsman for that office.
So we had applicants in December?
Yes, ma'am.
How many applicants?
Altogether, we had a total of 28 applicants. Out of those applicants, from what I was told, only 7 were qualified. So they disqualified 20, HR disqualified 21 of those applicants. But for whatever those reasons are, the board itself isn't sure, because we were trying to meet with HR to find out all of the details.
Understood. So are we still at 7, or because from December to April is 4 months? So have we not had time to narrow down an ombudsperson or?
So to be honest with you, our board has not met quorum since January. And so because we haven't been able to meet quorum to have a meeting, no, I take that, forgive me. We haven't met quorum since late February. And because of those issues, the board is not able to meet to do the things it needs to do.
Is it you've not met quorum because obviously you don't have 9 people on your board, but do you have enough members of your board to make quorum?
Yes, ma'am, we have a total of 8 members. However, you need 6 to have quorum. And so even if somebody is running late or if 2 members don't show up, you still wouldn't have, it's not enough to make quorum. And so that's really been the issue, is that board members have not been coming in order for us to meet quorum.
No, the late argument kind of doesn't work, because if you're late, you still came, so you should still have a quorum, just late. So it's just that you don't have 6 people showing up.
Correct.
I understand.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay. And I don't even know where to go with this next. What about the analyst positions? Have we been interviewing for the analyst positions? Have they been posted?
They were posted at one point in time when Mrs. Little was acting as the interim ombudsperson, and we did have an analyst in, but they resigned. They did resign. So, however, we could still post for the position, and the board could take in those, could hire an analyst and an analyst investigator as well, but we were thinking that perhaps we would like to have the ombudsman to do that itself once we got an ombudsman in place. Because we could hire somebody, and then if the ombudsman didn't like their work or could turn around and terminate them. So we wanted to give the ombudsman that freedom to hire their staff.
I hear you, but from December to April, that's 4 months that you've been waiting for an ombudsperson just because of the position. But there already wasn't an ombudsperson in place for a much longer time before that.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, while I certainly hear what you're saying, we have an assistant there who has no one to assist, who is taking an unknown number of complaints and just simply filing them. Whereas if there were an analyst there, that we could at least begin to at least sift through the complaints.
No, correct. No, I understand. No, I understand exactly where you're coming from. So, yes, ma'am, the analysts would be able, if we did get an analyst, they would be able to look at the complaints, file it, and have them ready. Once we got an ombudsman in, then they would be able to start working on the cases and things of that nature. Now, we do know that we do have the numbers of how many complaints are being filed. I just don't have that paperwork with me at this time.
So, and I'm just going off of last year, you had 31 total for a year. So even if we were to say that it was 31 again, that does not justify having an assistant just sitting there all day and filing. Like, what else would they be doing?
Well, they do answer, the assistant does answer the telephone. And so they're able to take calls and direct them by saying, no, if you're going to file a complaint, this is the correct way to do it. You can go online and you can look at it here, or if you can come into the office and you can write a complaint as well. So the administrative assistant's role is making sure that complaints are coming in, and also the administrative assistant, she knows how to work the system as well, so that she knows what the tally is and how.
But I would
complaints are.
imagine, right, you are setting her up for failure by having her take calls, walk people through something that's going nowhere. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. Yes, ma'am.
I would imagine that is setting her up for huge failure. So is it not possible to at least get one analyst in there, because you are not clear on where you are as far as hiring an ombudsperson?
Correct. No, we can do that. We don't have a problem with opening up. We just have to speak with, we have to just meet with HR and tell HR to begin hiring for these 2 positions. However, I would like to, even though I can make a decision like that on my own, I would like for the board to come to a consensus and for us to make that decision together. But
I completely understand. May I offer you communicating with them, telling them that you need a quorum so that you can have a consensus on moving forward with this? Otherwise, because again, us not doing anything with this office that we have $250,000 that we're mandated to put into it, an office that we are charter mandated to have, but is doing absolutely nothing. No offense to the assistant, because I'm really not even trying to offend her, because this is not on her, the fact that her job is solely just to take complaints that she can do nothing with. But I think it's worth you saying to the other members of the board, you know, please come in, because I'm trying not to make a unilateral decision. However, I'm going to have to make one because this is not fair to the residents. I'm calling you, there's an issue, there's an ongoing issue, and the issue just gets to continue as you wait for a process that you don't even know where you are in. Whereas if you had an analyst there, that more could be moving for residents.
Correct. No, I completely understand I understand where you're coming from. And yes, ma'am, that argument has been made, and that communication is going out to let our board members know that, you know, I couldn't make unilateral decisions, but I don't want to operate like that. And so, yes, ma'am, that's where that's our issue, is really quorum.
Because my next few questions, I don't want to ask them because I don't want to make the department look bad.
No,
because I understand how the response is going to go for these next questions, right? Because part of the duties is to perform audits across city departments. So how many audits of city departments have been conducted?
Well, we haven't done any audits for any of the departments.
Exactly.
Right.
My questions are not
Right,
going
correct.
to.
No.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
Yeah, because if there are any patterns of misconduct, if they've been identified, have there been any recommendations provided? Can't identify patterns if you've not conducted an audit. Public transparency and reporting. Is there a line item in the budget for transparent reporting or public-facing tools to track complaints and investigations handled by the Ombudsperson?
Yeah, so basically, we do have our own software. IT doesn't handle our software, but we do have software in place with the complaints and things of that nature. So that comes out of the budget as well.
So who handles your software? Where does it come from, and how are we making sure that it is safe? Sorry, Judy.
That's one of my questions. I was getting ready to.
They do have a software package, and I don't remember the name of it, but
Yeah, I don't know the name of it either.
Is it
reasonably
cloud-based?
priced software, and they've been using it for years.
So that makes me nervous
But-
because, go ahead.
But if I may, it is on a secure server. So all of the information is secured. So
We
it's,
thought everything was secure.
We were
until
secure
this.
over here too.
well, that's true until the cyber attack.
It's
Yes,
secure
ma'am.
until it's not.
Right, it's secure until it's not correct, but the company in which we use the software, I do know the company is out of Dallas, and that company has its own servers for protection in this.
So, Mr. Moore, question, because I know now with the city of Flint, we were looking at adding like cybersecurity to our insurance. Is that covered? Are they covered since they're on their own separate package? Would they be covered in any insurance needs or protections needed?
They are covered.
Okay.
And the way I understand their software is that it's not hosted on our server, but on the vendor's server. So it's a cloud-based, which is actually more secure than having a locally based software.
Okay, thank you. So, how does the Ombudsperson's office measure its success or effectiveness? Okay, I'm gonna yield. Thank you. I yield.
Okay. So I'm gonna go back to the personnel issue. Are the analysts, would they be union?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. There's good argument why they would not be, but I don't really know for sure on that. We haven't
And
had
I would
one.
agree with that there's a good argument because you're dealing with cross units of government.
Yeah, and we haven't had one since I've been here, so I don't know.
And I'm gonna
It
say,
says, our listing is exempt in our
okay,
budget, so-
and that makes total sense that it would be, and I just wanted to make clear on that. I am personally not in favor of having 2 analysts at this point. We haven't, the charter mandates that the EAB board gives us an annual report.
Well, it says, if I may, it says may. That's one of our options. It's not mandatory, but it says we can.
No, it says you may recommend improvements, but it says one of your responsibilities is to prepare an annual report. It says under here, under powers of the Ethics and Accountability Board, under D, it says prepare an annual report for submission to the mayor and city council. Consistent with state law, the EAB may recommend improvements in the standards of conduct to ensure the ethical behavior of city elected officers, appointees, and employees, or in the organization and procedures related to the administration and enforcement of those standards. So we don't have any idea of what's going on in that office. Nothing. You don't even, you can't, well, I know, you said you have the information, but we don't know how many, since we were elected, there's been no reports from the EAB. And this was brought up, you're new into the role, but we brought this up last year and maybe even the year before during budget hearings that we did not have a report from the EAB. So we don't know how many, we can't evaluate the amount of money that you're requesting, $500,000 almost, based on what, 33 cases. I'm not gonna approve $500,000 for that office. I'm just not. I don't see that there's enough work to keep 2 analysts and an ombudsman. Granted that we only had 1 person in that office, but I don't see where there is a need at this point, especially without an ombudsman, to have 2 analysts, an ombudsperson, and then our assistant.
Well, if I may, so one of the, thank you. If I may, so one of the analysts is actually an analyst and an investigator. So their role would be out to actually go out to the site, so wherever the complaint is, they would be the ones to actually investigate the complaint to make sure that all of the information that was submitted was correct, to actually really find out. However, also, the other analyst was to work with the Human Relations Commission, and that analyst was covered by a grant submitted by the, I believe, was it the Ruth Mott Found?
That was, but that grant has since expired. We
Expired.
returned it.
Correct. We returned it because the Human Relations Commission wasn't meeting. And
They
so,
still haven't met.
no, correct. And so with that was what one of the analysts was covered that grant fee. And so I did ask Mr. Moore if we got that analyst back in place, if we could reapply for that grant. And if we could reapply for that grant, that would pay for that salary. So the grant,
But why not use that grant for the other analyst and investigator? Make it 1 position. At this point, because the office hasn't been used much in the last 3 years, 2-3 years. Of course, we don't know because we don't have any data.
Correct.
So I need data to justify $500,000. And I agree that $250,000 per the charter, that might have been fine when 6 years ago, when the charter was approved. Why would they set a set dollar amount? I know that Mr. Murphy said that they wanted to ensure that it was funded, but we know that $500,000 just isn't going to fund 2 people with fringes and any expenditures. We know that that's just not possible.
Correct.
Especially in today's economy.
No, it's not.
So I'm not looking to slash down to 250,000, but I am looking to remove the second analyst position. Last year you had three people in the budget. This year you have 4, and you haven't demonstrated a need for that 4th employee.
That's fair, but, you know, what we can do is, that's fair, we could do is, we can just take out the regular analyst and we can keep the analyst investigator there. That wouldn't be a problem. Now, once the issue would come in is once the Human Relations Commission, whenever they do meet, that's where that issue would come in, because that analyst would then play double duty. So we would have to bring in a second analyst to handle that.
And we
board
can
itself.
address that at that point.
Okay, that's not a problem.
So, Mr. Moore, can you prepare the costs that relate to that, and so that we can do that as a budget amendment at the time?
That'd be very easy.
Okay, I figured that would work for you. And then, what was my other question? I was writing and she said, so those were my big things. I know that I want to publicly state this. You and I have had a conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
The way that my appointee to that EAB board was treated by by members of this body, I will not put anybody else through that. The man was more than adequately qualified to sit on that board. I looked for a long time. He was the best one I found, and they really did not treat him well. And I'm not going to put another one of my residents through that type of interrogation or talking down to. And yes, I have somebody who is interested in that board, but I'm not appointing anybody. Not at this point.
So you do have somebody that is interested?
Interested, but I'm not going to put him through that. Yeah, that's right. And the way her appointee was treated at the EAB board, it's not until the culture and people who are currently, and we don't need to name names, but we know who we're talking about, changes, I'm not putting anyone in that position. I'm not naming names, but I want to let that be known publicly that I just am not going to put anybody in that. It's not fair to that person. Anybody who's in that seat and on that board needs to be treated with respect, as well as any resident or anybody hired to do a job for the board. They need to be treated with respect. Until they can be treated with respect, that's how I feel. That's true. That's exactly right.
Well,
so, and it's not against you.
Oh, right, but if I may say, the one thing that I did say as becoming chairman is that I would make sure that I would protect all board members. No matter what position they may stand on, and we understand that everybody has different opinions. But as the chairman, it's my job to make sure that all board members are respected, that not only is their space respected, but their opinions are respected, their information is respected, and they themselves as a person is respected. So I would implore you that if you, and I highly recommend, please to resubmit your applications for your appointees, because under this administration, under my leadership, I promise that I would make sure that not one board member would be disrespected in a meeting or elsewhere. I fight for everybody.
But that doesn't excuse the conduct of the members of this body.
Yes, ma'am. No.
And how
I understand.
that person was treated. I didn't blame him one bit for walking out the way he did, because he was talked down to and basically told I was appalled. So, and all of the appointees have to come through this body. So I'm not going to put anybody through that. So anyways, but that's my only concern about we don't have, I would like to know how many people we have, how many complaints we have sitting there.
Okay. That's
That
not a
haven't
problem.
been analyzed.
Yes, ma'am.
That gives us an idea of where financially it should be sitting. But I do think that I will support you on 3 employees in that office, but not 4 at this point.
Okay.
That can always change, but at this point, 3, not 4.
Yeah, no problem.
And I think that's the only department, and I'm not against the ombudsman.
No.
It's just that I don't see that I don't see a need for another body when there's other departments that need a body too.
No, I completely understand that. And then also, I can make sure that you all will actually get that information on tomorrow. I'll contact Ms. Little, and I'll make sure that you guys will have that in your emails on tomorrow.
Yep, go ahead and have them sent to
Davina?
Davina.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
I'll do that.
And I want to remind all council members who are not present that if they have any questions, to put them in writing so that that department can have the opportunity to respond to all of us
Correct.
through Davina.
Yeah, and
So
that's
that,
not
what is the date of that public hearing? Davina? I don't have my, oh, I do have my phone, but I think it's in here.
The one that we're gonna have the,
Keeps going to, that's on the 14th. That's the public hearing for the community budget hearing and discussion. So that's when we're planning on doing the budget work, is on the 14th of May. So we want all answers and questions received and by the 14th of May, maybe even by the 12th. Let's do the 12th of May. So anything that council members have requested of departments that they're asked and answered by May 12th.
So, Madam Clerk, can you send that out in an email to all council members? Thank you.
And what time is that meeting?
I think it's at 5.
Okay.
Yes, it's at 5. Yep, seeing there's no more questions, want to thank you, and it's now time 6:40, and y'all can go home.
Thank you.
More helpful to you.
That's all right.
There's a couple things I wish I couldn't quite answer.
No.
The software thing, I just don't remember. I think it might be paid out of professional services.
It is. The software I do know is paid out of professional services, but that's, it is.
That's why I just quit asking questions. I was like, it's only gonna be down.